Hey guys, I'm Ben Bateman.
And I'm Andrew Guy.
And we are the Action Guys. Cool.
Yeah.
I felt really cool
It feels
that
a
time.
lot cooler with other people in the room doing it, too.
The show's not about us today, though. It's
Thank
not.
God.
Thank God. We've done too many of those shows. We have a special guest today, Mr. Joseph Gatt.
Thank you very much. How you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing excellent.
Way better now that you're here. We just saw you in Dumbo. You kicked ass. You look even more yoked in person. I'm totally blown away.
Yeah, Niles Skellig.
Nice.
We knew you were in great shape, but holy shit, man. Like, you are in phenomenal shape.
Well, I didn't even wear my tightest t-shirt today.
Okay. You took it easy on us.
Yeah, I was just like, you know.
Thank God.
Thank God.
Ben and I do very good. We try very hard to stay in shape, but he has put us to shame.
I'm emasculated. Right now, I feel that. I feel that way. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, Joe, we're so very happy to have you in studio. And based off of Dumbo coming out, this is kind of the reason or the inspiration for the topic this week on the show, which is the greatest actor-director duos of history in film history.
In film history, and one of those duos is the duo that is top-lining this film that you were just in, and we got to watch it, which was really exciting. So we can't wait to kind of pick your brain about that, and also just hear your inspirations as an actor, as you've actually been in several of our favorite films, which is exciting.
Have I?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, we're giant MCU fans. I mean, if you, I guess Game of Thrones is not technically a film, but it's at this point it feels like one.
Yeah, we love True Detective. So you've shown up in so many places. I cannot wait to because I also like to act from time to time. So I cannot wait to talk to you more about your inspirations and basically where you came from, because it's very interesting.
So the question on today's show is, who is the greatest actor, director, or actress, director combo in history? We have a whole list that we are going to get to in a little bit here. Couple quick shout-outs before we get into the main topic and talking to you about your career, sir. You guys can watch the full version of this video on the Action Industries YouTube page. You guys are going to get a clip of this. Probably this clip right now is the one you're watching, I'm assuming. The full audio version, obviously, is going to be available as a download on the Collider Movie Talk podcast feed, which is where you guys can listen to this. And the third shout-out is go see Dumbo this weekend.
Yeah, please
it comes out.
Go see Dumbo. It was so fun. Dumbo was so adorable, and you are so wicked in it. It is excellent.
And take your Kleenex.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Really sad.
Yeah, it was like a very emotionally. I've realized as I've gotten into my 30s, I just cry a lot more. Like I just tear up or well up, or I'll like things will happen. Yeah, kind of like feel like
I kind of do the same thing as well. Like we can be watching the most random TV show or movie, and then I'll get all emotional, start crying.
Yeah.
And I'm like, baby, why am I crying over this? And she's like, it's okay, baby. You can cry. It's fine.
I have no idea why I decided to go and watch a handful of the beginning of the animated, like the beginning of Up. I went and watched that, and I went and watched Bow, the one with the, and I was just crying. I was just crying for like 10 minutes. So anyway, that was my weekend.
I think the first 10 minutes of Up, we've talked about it on the show before, is the saddest 10 minutes in the 21st century for film. How do you not cry?
It's the saddest thing ever. All right, so enough about us crying. Our social plugs, guys, you can find us at Team Action Show on Twitter. You can find us at Action Industries on Instagram. Please go and follow at Meet Joe Gatt, our wonderful guest. Yeah. And that's enough plugging. Let's just get right into it.
Let's get into the show.
Let's do it.
All right, first question. How many calories per day do you have to consume to maintain the physique? Be honest.
I should be consuming around 3,000 calories or more. And I generally am very lazy when it comes to my eating. Even though I eat pretty well, I barely get 2,000 calories. Like, I don't know how I haven't turned into a 100-pound waif.
Oh, when you say you're lazy, you don't eat lazily. You just don't eat as much as you should.
I don't eat as much as I should.
I thought you were saying, like, with your diet plan, you're kind of lazy with sticking to it, and somehow you're still shredded, but...
No, the problem with eating really healthy, especially eating that many calories healthy, is... it's hard work.
Oh, it is.
Because, you know, there are only so many protein shakes you can have and only so many protein bars you can eat. You know, you need to eat real food, and it's tough prepping that food every day, and it can be really tiresome, but...
it gets so redundant. We're actually not even going to talk about movies at all today.
No,
we're just going to keep...
No, it's just...
It's funny because every actor that gets interviewed, exactly in this situation where, you know, an actor takes really great care of their body, they say the same thing. To stay big, you're eating like all these like naked pieces of chicken and like all this stuff. It just gets like, it's uncomfortable to eat as much as you have to. Yeah. And especially the guys like a Chris Evans or somebody who was like pretty small before and he has to get huge. Everybody always talks about that. It's just like an uncomfortable experience to eat that much.
But luckily for those guys, they only have to do it for about 3 months before they work on a movie.
Right.
I do it every day.
Is it now?
You know, it's just because this is my life. So you know, I've been like this ever since I was young, very athletic and in shape, and it's just been a very important thing to me. Whereas, you know, you hear about your A-list actors, and they're talking about, having to go on these horrendous diets and
Right.
and train really hard and stuff and do this. I'm like, but you guys are being paid millions of dollars to do this for a couple of months. I do this every day. It's just, there's a balance.
Well, so this has got to be some sort of, a part of your routine and part of like keeping you balanced in the world and part of keeping you on track. Because we've talked about this a lot. And getting older, we're just getting into our 30s now. It's really important to build
Babies.
Yeah, I know.
I don't feel that way, but I appreciate it.
But the routine for excellence is like such a big thing. And I didn't want to cut you off. Did you have something you want to say about that?
I was going to actually ask you. You said you've been this way since a young age.
Yeah.
And you grew up in the UK, yeah?
Yeah.
So, like, what was the thing in your life that brought you towards that, living that kind of lifestyle that's then got you here? I mean, what inspired you to be that way?
I was always kind of athletic. I played soccer as a kid. Sorry for all those Brit people, football. I've been in America so long now.
I was just going to say,
just
wow.
call it soccer now. I know.
Yeah. You did that for our sake.
That soccer is actually the original thing that it was called before we called it football. It was called soccer before it was ever called football.
I'm going to keep this clip with me for any time that anyone
I'm telling you,
ever
I
says
have
that.
this. I have this conversation every time one of my English friends, gives me a hard time for calling it soccer. I'm like, actually, it was called soccer way before it was called football.
Interesting.
So anyway, I digress. My hair fell out. I had got alopecia when I was like 12 years old, and when you spend most of your youth being ostracized, bullied, being called ugly, blah blah blah, all of this stuff, I couldn't do anything to change this.
Yeah.
This was the way it was, and when I finally got myself together and decided that I wanted to continue on in this world, I thought, what can I do to empower myself? And one of those things was I can change my body. I can change my physique. That's something I have complete control over. And so I started working out, started doing martial arts, joined the military, did all kinds of different things, and did a lot more sports, played semi-professional soccer for a while, played rugby. And then it just became part of my life. Just fitness, going to the gym. I started lifting weights when I was like 19.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So that's actually 19 is actually relatively late for a lot of people
Yeah.
who get into fitness. That's a pretty late age to start with the weights. Were you? I mean, you're a pretty built guy. Before you started lifting, were you naturally kind of built, or were you smaller?
No, I was my height was there.
Yeah.
But I was incredibly skinny.
What are you like 6'1", 6'2"?
I'm 6'1".
6'1". Okay.
Yeah, but my upper body, I was very skinny. I always had large legs from playing soccer, but my upper body was incredibly skinny. I remember the first day I was able to stand in front of my mirror, and I held my arms out, and I couldn't see my ribs. And it was just muscle.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, it's working. That was a very memorable moment for me, because I was all skin and bones, upper body.
Well, and that turned into a modeling career, right? This is
A very, very successful modeling career.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun doing modeling. There was a moment when I was doing really well, when I was actually working in Milan, modeling for people like Levi's and Armani, people like that, and having a great time. There's nothing like being paid to live in Milan. It's fantastic. Yeah. But the thing about modeling, it's fun for a short period of time, but there's nothing substantial to it.
Yeah, I actually couldn't. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go on.
I was just say I couldn't agree more, and I was actually going to ask you about, based off what we'd read, that you clearly had a different career path for you as a child, and then you said you kind of fell into modeling and stuff. What was it from there that made you turn away from sports, away from modeling, and really want to lean into acting, something that was more fulfilling for you? Because I know we've both done modeling, and it's a great paycheck, but it's a boring ass day
working
most of the
really
time.
hard to be good looking is a tough thing to work hard at. That's not a very fulfilling endeavor.
Yeah.
Exactly, hanging around wearing all those beautiful clothes, hanging around with beautiful people. It's a tough
terrible.
job.
Yeah.
Terrible. I hated it. No, I mean, funny enough, Top Gun.
The film Top Gun, the first
film Top Gun, the original 1985, incredible movie that it was. It changed my life.
Okay.
Because when I was a kid, I always wanted to fly jets. I wanted to join the RAF.
Yeah.
And found out I couldn't do that because I was colorblind. I found out I was colorblind when I was 13, and the stress from finding that out and finding out that I couldn't be a pilot is probably what led to the alopecia happening. The stress triggered the alopecia and the hair loss. And so I went through, obviously, a very bad period where I was learning how to deal with all of this and the bullying and everything that went along with it, And I started doing a part-time acting course at my local college, just as something to fill in the time. And a lot of people told me it'd be something that would help me get some confidence in myself. And I actually found I started to enjoy this thing. And I remember my acting teacher at the time, and God forgive me, I can never remember her name, but she was instrumental in changing my life, because she said to me, you know, you're pretty good at this. Why don't you audition for a drama school? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, you mean actually go to drama school and stuff? She said, yeah, you should audition for a drama school. You know, there's some great places you can go to. I'll help you work on your audition speeches and stuff. She did. I auditioned. And that was it. I got into drama school. And I just completely fell in love with this thing called acting. And even, you know, my career started off singing.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something I'd never done before. And I learned how to sing and found out that this was another thing that I enjoyed and loved, and got a lot of employment when I first graduated doing musical theater and stuff. And just, I completely fell in love with this thing called acting. And yeah, that, and the great thing about acting as well that really inspired me was that, you know, when you're a kid and you're watching these movies and TV shows that you love, these people are doing all these incredible things.
Yeah.
That you can never do in real life.
Right.
And Top Gun, you know, happened, and I think if I cannot fly jets in real life, maybe I can be an actor and do it, you know, as an acting job.
Well, and the crazy thing too about that is, like, as you know, things develop more and more, and actors have to do so much now to do the role. You look at Rami Malek, and it's like,
Yeah.
he basically just got to be a rock star,
Yep.
right? That's
Right.
He did Wembley, like he had to. And you look at like these things, so it's like more and more is asked of somebody, that to the point that what you're saying is true. You do get the experience. You do get to actually feel like. I mean, Cruise is my favorite ever. He's my
Absolutely.
guy. And I've read a lot and watched a lot of the interviews about him doing Top Gun, and he had to learn to fly jets. I mean, that's, he actually can do it now. He flies jets.
I remember an interview that he did quite a while ago, and he said that he tries to learn a new skill with every role
movie,
he
right?
plays.
Yeah.
Whether it be, you know, juggling cocktails, you know, driving fast cars. His love for driving, he has an incredible love for motorcycles and cars. It comes from doing Days of Thunder.
Yep.
And he learned to drive sports cars, racing cars, doing that movie, and he's continued doing that. You know, it's and that's such a great privilege that we have as actors. We have access to all of those things that a lot of people who are not in, I was going to say regular people, but that's not really fair. Just people who are not in the industry don't have access to. You know, I've met so many incredible people through my work, and been able to experience so many amazing things that I would never have been able to experience had I not become an actor.
Yeah.
And I will always be grateful to that. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And speaking about you working, I mean, we talked a lot about some of these massive name projects that you worked on. But one of the very first things, I believe the first film you ever did was Orpheus and Eurydice. Is that right?
Oh, God, yeah.
And you were across from Oliver Reed, who is one of the most famous, celebrated actors ever.
The late, great Oliver Reed.
The late, great.
I think it was one of the last things that
Proximo.
he did before he died of a heart attack drunk in a pub in Malta.
Yep.
Yeah, during Gladiator.
During Gladiator. Yeah, I mean, that was, again, I only actually met him once, because most of the stuff that he did was voiceover, narration on that movie. But again, it was this thing that came out of nowhere. They flew us out to Greece, put us up in Athens in this beautiful hotel. We got to work doing this, you know, in period costume, and it was all set, you know, around Greek gods kind of era. And it was just a fantastic experience. And he was kind of a funny guy. He's just such a big character, you know. And the one time that we all met him and he came to set and stuff, it was just great. He just acted like he'd been our best friend for years.
Yeah.
It was kind of fantastic.
I mean, speaking of in period piece costume, so much of the work that you've done has had you in like heavy makeup, crazy costumes, like period stuff. Do you feel more at home as an actor in something like you're wearing now, or in that stuff? In anything from heavy makeup to like giant, I don't know, Viking. You know, I'm a big fan of The 100, so I watch that show a lot. Like, I mean, which one is more comfortable for you?
You know, I love all of it as long as it's there to help with the character.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care what it is I have to wear or not wear. but if it's something that's pertinent to displaying the character or helping the character, then it's going to be fun to wear. Except working on Game of Thrones, that was, I mean, God bless them. The thing about Game of Thrones is the wardrobe they produce is not, it's all real.
Right.
Yeah.
Like nothing is made for camera kind of thing. It's made as if they were making real clothes. And the wardrobe that we were wearing was real. It was leather, furs, thick wool. I even had wood on my costume, on my wardrobe.
Jesus.
And I remember we were shooting in Iceland, and you think Iceland's going to be freezing cold, it's going to be fine, all of that stuff. So we arrived at the location where we were shooting the first scene, which was the raid on the Viking village. And when we were rehearsing the scene, it was freezing cold that day. It was about 25 degrees. It's pretty cold, and the wardrobe felt fantastic. I'm like, this is great. And it's a big sequence, lots of fighting and stuff, and I'm grabbing kids and throwing them around, you know, the usual stuff.
Yeah, right.
Usual Game of Thrones thing. No elephants, but kids this time. But then the next day we show up to set, and it's like, you know, in the high 70s. And we're like, oh my God, we're looking for clouds, like hoping that it was going to cool down. No, it didn't cool down. We were all dying of heat exhaustion the whole day. In between every shot, there were all of these wardrobe assistants who were quickly whipping off all of our tops and jackets and stuff so that we could cool down a little bit between shots.
Oh my God.
It was horrible. We're like, you know, running down this hill with heavy swords and stuff, and we're like, that was tough.
That sounds like one of those
really tough.
moments that I would imagine, and you guys are actors, I'm just the host over here, but I would imagine that, like, you're like, what am I doing? What am I doing in this moment? I feel like, personally, I would be like, I'm giving up. I'm leaving. I'm not doing this. I'd be like...
But it's Game of Thrones,
I'd be worried
man.
that I would come off as a diva, of course, which I think probably most actors who feel that way, it's exactly what happens, and just tough it out. But I would be like, yeah, take this stuff off of me. I'm going home.
You know what? It was... in the back of your mind, you kind of think that a little bit, but then you take a moment and you take a breath and you look around and you think, this is kind of awesome.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You're getting the coolest
You know,
thing in
you're
the
just
world.
like, I mean, really?
I'm
This
in
is
Iceland
okay.
sweating right now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to complain about overheating. I'm working on Game of Thrones. This is fine. And then when you see, like, you know, we were doing the Battle of Castle Black, and it was all shot in this quarry in Ireland, in Northern Ireland, just north of Belfast. And Castle Black is a full set built in the bottom of this quarry, and it was all night shoots. Freezing cold, raining every moment.
Oh my God.
Mud up to knees, and you're just like, wow, this would never fly on a SAG, project. This is ridiculous. And you're looking around, and then you see Kit Harington's there, and he's just doing his thing, and Rose Leslie's doing her thing, and we're all like, God damn, let's just get on with this.
Right.
This is
Yeah,
fun.
right.
You know, it's
Just gotta do the work.
Getting paid to roll around in mud and
pretty
do
cool.
stuff. Yeah, it's just, yeah. So it's like, you you have your complaints, and then you put it all in perspective, and you're like, no, this is great.
So on the subject then of, getting to wear that type of wardrobe, was it refreshing for you that in probably the most visible starring performance that you've gotten to be in, a Disney film, you were in a suit looking super just like fly and just like
you looked
clean?
awesome.
I loved it. It was like the first time ever. I think I've worn anything of that type. And thank you, Colleen Atwood, for designing a beautiful suit for me and those boots.
Oh, those boots are so awesome.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I posted a picture on my Instagram, and I'm finally able to post because it came out in this book that just got released of the full outfit and the full wardrobe. And I'm like, yeah, that looks pretty badass.
Yeah, you look great.
Yeah. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course you are. Yeah. Well, what's funny is Ben and I were watching the movie earlier on, and I mean, obviously, the beginning of the movie, and we're like, the bad guy, the like elephant herder in the beginning was the bad guy. We're like, that's not him though.
We were like, that's a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
that's a lot of
What's his name?
makeup on
There's
Joe.
no
way that
Yeah.
that's Joe right now.
And then the character. Oh, I don't want to spoil it. But
And then you find out when you're actually revealed later on. We're like, oh, there he is.
He was just the appetizer.
Yeah.
No,
Okay,
Rufus
so
is great, though. He's a great guy.
on the topic of Dumbo, we were just talking about these crazy sets. A bit about this set that Tim Burton had built, I heard, was just absolutely mesmerizing in the sense of having hundreds of, not extras, but like performance level extras just just living on set, doing incredible juggling, fire breathing, whatever it was.
Oh, yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about, being on this grand scale of a set with such a big name as Tim Burton and kind of, his amazing imagination, what it was like there every day.
It was a big surprise to me because, Tim has used different methods, different amounts of VFX depending on the type of movies he's done. Like obviously, like with Batman, they built these massive sets. With something like, I think, Alice in Wonderland, it was nearly all green screen. It's like you never know what you're going to get with Tim and how he's going to work. So I didn't know what to expect. The first time I walked onto the sets at Pinewood Studios, we literally, Dumbo had 7 sound stages at Pinewood Studios. The other half of Pinewood Studios was all solo at the time. And every single one of these stages was full of these huge sets. And the first set I walked onto was the set of Medici Circus.
Okay.
And they built the full circus tent inside the soundstage.
Wow.
So you walk in there and you're like,
holy shit.
This is amazing. And all the colors and the design, everything, it was just magical.
Yeah.
It's like you're being transported to a different place. And you don't have to watch the movie to do it. You're right there as an actor. And I think that's one of the things I know that, that Michael felt the same way, Danny, Colin, Eva, that he gave us so much with regards to how much set was built and the wardrobe and everything that we didn't have to imagine anything. I mean, the only thing that they put in there, I think VFX, what they did a lot of, obviously, backgrounds, skies, Dumbo, obviously.
But I heard they gave you a lot of help with Dumbo as well.
Even with Dumbo, we had a lot of help. We had these beautiful models of Dumbo at different ages.
Yeah.
So that we could get an idea of his size and his lighting and that kind of thing for when they were setting up cameras and stuff. And then we had a guy called Edy Osman who was fantastic. He was in like a little green Dumbo suit. And he would actually move around and walk, and he was on like little stilts on his hands, and we'd move around on all fours. And he'd have this big green head on with the eyes and everything and the trunk. And he'd walk around and act as Dumbo. So we would actually have something to act with.
It was like your Andy Serkis.
It's like Sean. It's like Sean Gunn does with Rocket in the Guardians movies. Yeah, he jumps on tables and stuff. Same kind of thing.
Exactly, and it we had so much there. It made it really easy for us. It just literally transported you away, and then we had that scene. The scenes in Dreamland were even bigger because they were shot up at Cardington Studios, which are massive airship hangars, which are where they built the original sound stages for the Batman movies. And that's where they built Dreamland. They built the whole of the boardwalk where we do the parade entrance to Dreamland.
That's all practical.
That's all practical.
Holy. That place is amazing.
That's practical. The only thing that's not practical in that are some of the background stuff, the roller coaster ride, all that kind of thing. All the people and us coming down that, and everything you see basically up to about 30 feet high is all practical.
Wow.
That's crazy. All the background, all the extras were like... Actually, I was just looking at my photos this morning. I've got this little video I took of all of the background waiting to come into stage. And I took this video, and it's a little kind of like disconcerting because you got, modern, and then all of these people in period 1900, early 1900 wardrobe, like as far as the eye can see. And it is just beautiful. It's down to the most minute details. It really was... like walking into a different place as soon as you walk to one of those sound stages.
That's so cool.
And all the circus performers as well are all real circus performers that were all sourced from all over Europe, from all various countries, from the Ukraine, from Hungary and various other parts of Europe, and all sourced and brought together, all the dancers and everything you see in there is real. All of the circus performers are doing real stuff, everything you see that Eva is doing, that her character is doing, it's all real, and either she's doing it herself or her double is doing it.
Oh, wow. So she did get up on that trapeze.
She did get up there, and she did do quite a bit of her own stuff, yeah.
Wow.
Did you feel a lot of pressure in your scenes with that much going on in the background? Like, obviously, there's always pressure on scenes. You got camera, you got crew and everything, but now you've also got this circus, like a literal circus behind you. It's like, cut, we got to stop, hold on, reset. It's, you know, there's like 500 instead of like 100 or whatever it might be. Did you feel that, or was it kind of just like it just helped you kind of get into it more?
Yeah, you know, I kind of felt that I would, because there is a lot of pressure, you know, when there's so much riding on you doing your part correctly, whether it be remembering your lines or hitting the right mark or whatever, because then when you have to reset 500, you know, background people. Right. But ultimately, when we actually got down to it, it wasn't an issue. You just focus on your own thing and you just do it. And the thing that was beautiful was, you know, everyone was very encouraging and collaborative. And Tim especially never made anyone feel like they were doing anything wrong. He was such a great director and so humble and modest and warm. And everything about him was encouraging. And you just felt comfortable the whole time you were on set. There never felt like there was any stress
or judgment
in any way, or
yeah.
judgment or anything. You know, the only time I felt stress was the time when I thought I was going to drop Danny DeVito.
You never want to drop Danny DeVito.
Yeah, we've heard that before from guests.
I told him, I said, "You can trust me. You can trust me." No, it's a bit where I come in, you know, and have that scene in the box in the thing where I confront him and I have to drag him off, and he was concerned he might fall. You know, because I have to drag him up some stairs. And I tell him, I said, "Danny, it's okay. I am not going to drop you." And he says, No, I trust you. It's fine. I trust you. And I'm sitting there going, "Oh, shit, I better not drop him."
Danny DeVito. They teach you that in drama school, right?
Me. Yeah, exactly. We worked on not dropping Danny DeVito at drama school. It was one of our classes. Yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead, man.
I was going to jump in and ask, you know, speaking of just it being so comfortable on set, working with Tim, who you mentioned before we had the cameras rolling, was somebody that you really loved when you were getting into films. You mentioned Top Gun. I'm sure some of his early work is probably stuff that you were a huge fan of as well. Was there a familiarity you kind of noticed amongst that cast? Because they had all worked together before, or at least some of them, right? I mean, Keaton and DeVito and Burton, right?
That was the main trilogy, those three. And that was very interesting for me to watch, for any actor to watch, was watching that dynamic between the three of them.
Yeah.
Because they're all very different in their energies and in their, you know, in their personalities. You know, how Danny works is totally different to how Michael works. And it was so interesting watching the two of them play together. You know, and
Can you elaborate on that at all? Like in the sense of in how their styles are different, just in that sense?
I could.
You don't have to.
Well, Michael likes to, he loves to improvise. And he likes to come to set and just work things through and invent things and try different things and stuff, which is a fantastic way of working. Danny likes to come to set totally prepared, knows exactly what he's doing, and just get on with it kind of thing. And so the two of them, you know, sometimes there was some clashing about that kind of thing, because you know Michael would want to have a discussion about something, and Danny would be like, why don't we just get on with this? You know, Tim, let's just roll the cameras. Let's just do this kind of thing. And but it was fun to watch.
Yeah.
You know, it was a great dynamic, and it produced some really cool stuff on camera. And you could see that even though the two of them worked incredibly differently, you could see that they enjoyed working together.
Yeah.
And Tim is such an intelligent guy, and he's so good with people. Even though he himself, he's very quiet and very modest and isn't a gregarious person, but he's very good at understanding what different people want and need. And he will direct everybody in a slightly different way according to what he knows about them and what he thinks will work, kind of thing. So he directed Michael completely differently to how he would direct Danny or myself or whatever. And that's such a clever thing when a director's capable of doing that. A lot of directors are not. They have their one way of directing. And so there are people they're going to work well with and people they're not going to work well with. I don't know an actor that wouldn't work well with Tim, because he's that, what's the word I'm looking for? He's that...
easygoing? What?
Personable?
Yeah, personable.
Yeah.
He's that personable. He's that easygoing.
Well, I was watching this interesting thing about Ridley Scott in The Martian. They were saying the same thing about him, as he comes and he sits down with each one of his actors and he talks to them in like a very specific way to the way that they are best informed of their best way of learning. And I think that's just such a unique and incredible thing, especially for someone of that caliber, Ridley Scott and Tim Burton. But that's probably why they are where they are.
You know? Well, I can't wait actually for the second half of our show to talk about some of these directors, because I know we have feelings about like the performances some of these directors have gotten out of their actors are so specific. But before we get to it, I just wanted to ask you one more question, and that's, when in the process of getting this role did you first meet Tim Burton?
I didn't meet him till my first day on set. Yeah, because they had trouble finding an actor for this role, and they had actually already started shooting. And they kind of shot almost chronologically according to the script.
Okay.
So obviously there's about 40 pages of script before myself and Michael show up. So that was I think about 4 weeks of shooting, roughly. I think I arrived on day 42 or something like that. So they had already been shooting, and I think Derek told me that they had seen me in something.
Okay.
And then they reached out to Susie Figgis, who was casting, who then reached out to my agent and then got in touch with me. I put a self-tape together. You know, I was literally given 2 hours to improvise this role, do this self-tape, cut it, send it in. And I received the script the next day saying, Tim wants to know what I think about the script. And I'm like,
tell Tim Burton
it's
me?
terrible, and I still want to do the movie. You know, no, I was just like, yes, Tim, it's great. I cried. Let's work together, please. You know, kind of thing. But just like, you know, Colin kind of said the same thing. You know, when he was asked about it, he was just like, look, it's about working with Tim.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to work with Tim? You know, and then you just take it from there.
Yeah.
So I still hadn't met him, and I know some of the he had met with most of the other actors, even if it was just for a day. Like I know, you know, he would fly people. He would either fly to LA for a day or fly the actors from the States to the UK just for a day to have a coffee, you know, a little lunch meet, a 10-minute meet, just so he could meet them. We had never met because there just simply wasn't the time.
Because of the nature of the shooting, yeah.
Because they were already on set, they were shooting. So my first day on set, when I arrived in the UK, I went in for a hair and makeup test, and was taken to set. And the first person I met was Derek, who's Tim's executive producer. And then he introduced me to Tim. And it was kind of like very sudden. It's like I'm talking to Derek, and he's telling me about how much they love my tape and all this, and how happy they are for me to be there and stuff. And then all of a sudden, Tim's right behind me and says, oh, Tim, this is Joe. And Tim just comes up to me and gives me a big hug and say, oh, hey, Joseph, thank you so much. I'm so happy that you could be here and that you enjoyed the script and that you wanted to work on this. And I just, in the back of my mind, I'm just like, Tim, shut up. You're Tim.
Right. I was like, what was the 10-year-old inside of you doing at that moment?
Just I was freaking out because I'm in this circus tent and Tim's telling me how happy he is and I'm working. I'm like, you're Tim Burton. Right. Stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
You don't have to talk to me.
I'm happy to be here.
Just
please.
direct me, man.
Yeah. But it was just so lovely the first meeting and how humble he was and just how thankful and grateful, and you just don't expect people of that status to be that way.
Yeah.
You don't. You know, it's just the last person I met of that kind of status that was like that was, you know, Anthony Hopkins, who I worked with on Thor.
Yes.
And
that makes me so happy to hear.
He is such
Anthony
a grounded, down-to-earth person. And, you know, we just, you know, I was introduced to him by, you know, Ken Branagh, and the first thing he said to me was, because I'm looking at, again, it's a similar situation. I'm looking at Anthony Hopkins. This is Anthony Hopkins. And I'm in full Frost Giant makeup and and I'm like, it's lovely to meet you, Sir Anthony. And he just takes my big Frost Giant hands and he's just like, oh, it's Tony, dear fellow, it's Tony. Aren't we so glad to be here? Look at this, isn't this wonderful?
Oh my God.
And I'm just like, oh my God. Every morning he greeted me the same way.
That's so cool.
He would come and find me in makeup and go, oh, Joseph, dear fellow, isn't it so wonderful to be here? We're going to have such a fun day. And then we would spend the rest of the day shooting and drinking tea and talking about, you know, what brought us to America and all this kind of thing.
That's
and
so cool.
it's really beautiful when you meet people like that who are just so grounded, so accepting of who they are. They have nothing to prove. They're just people, you know, and I love that.
If I could get Anthony Hopkins to say good morning to me once like
It would
that.
be amazing. One of my favorite things in the world. Is when decorated actors who've been in a ton of stuff refer to famous people by a shortened name, like Ken Branagh. That's
Yeah,
nothing
Ken.
I enjoy more than that.
I know, and you said Ken, but I was like, Ken, like one of the greatest Shakespearean actors ever.
Right.
Yeah.
Because so we tell the story a lot,
But that's how he introduces himself.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure.
He wants to be called Ken.
Yeah.
Because
Ken.
you've worked with him, I'm giving you 100% support and pass on that decision. But we joke about it because it's like one of our favorite things. If you casually, offhandedly refer to somebody in that sense, that it suggests that you've met them and have worked with them. So we can kind of do that to big time people sometimes, even if it hasn't happened to us.
Yeah, our favorite one is our friend Daryl worked with Gerard Butler, and Ben was talking to him.
Yes.
Yeah, and so at one point, Daryl runs another network, and I worked with him on something, and I was really excited. I was going to interview Gerard for the first time for like London Has Fallen a couple years ago, and I say to Daryl, I'm really excited. This Friday, I'm going to interview Gerard Butler, and he's like, "Yeah, Jerry's a great interview." And and I was like, "Oh, cool." So then the next day on our other show, I was like, "Yeah, I'm really excited to interview Jerry on Friday." And he was like, "Did you just call him Jerry?"
Like, stop the presses.
So then ever since, when I did interview
Yeah.
him, I referred to him as Jerry, and he says my friends call me Jerry. So
Yeah,
that's
Jerry.
So yeah, you're famous. You get to do that. That's a thing you get to do.
Very last thing, I know we're gonna have to cut this segment short at the end here, but I was just gonna ask you about that moment when you found out that you did get the role. So you sent in the self-tape. The next day you get the script and the phone call. Was it like 2 days later? Was it that phone call? Was it when was it that they actually were like, we need you to come here now?
Yeah, basically the offer happened later that day from getting the script sent to me. I obviously wrote back and said, I love the script. I want to do this. So there was the offer. But then there was a very difficult period of about 2.5, almost 3 weeks of the negotiations.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there like, kind of, come on, let's sort this out. I want to get out. But as soon as that got done, like within a week, I was being flown to the UK.
Yeah.
Because they like needed me there.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was just that weird period when the negotiations are happening, and you don't know what's going on because that's not in your court kind of thing.
It's not sure. Yeah, right. You have an agent for that reason.
Your
literally.
agent, your manager, producers, casting, they're all playing their games, doing what they do.
And you're just waiting.
You're just waiting because you just want to do it.
Yeah.
You want to get out there and work with these people, but yeah, there's nothing you can do. But once that was done, I was like, oh my God. It was like, when I got my green card, it was like, oh, weight off the shoulders. Now we can go to work kind of thing.
So we're going to get into the main topic of the show here and talk about some of our favorite actor-director duos. A quick shout-out and reminder to everybody listening or watching. Action Industries is doing our very first watch-along for a movie we have coming up on Action Movie Anatomy next week. We're going to be talking about Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Andrew and I are this Sunday, 8 p.m., March 31st, doing an official watch-along where you guys can watch the film with us. It's going to be at 8 p.m. Go check it out, patreon.com/Team Action. Everybody at the $10 level gets to join in on that action with us. We're doing a giveaway on at Team Action Show on Twitter right now as a free entry to that. So go and find that post and enjoy that. So I think let's get into the topic.
Yeah, let's get into it. And then we're going to start it off as we always do. We usually categorize it, and we're going to start with our honorable mentions. These are people that, honestly, they should be on the list, but some of them are kind of out of our age range or our wherewithal with knowing movies, and other ones are just kind of not enough collaborations to make the list.
Yeah, so I mean, in all reality, the top line reference here is John Wayne and John Ford.
That's the number one, period.
They did 14 films together, and I think most movie historians would probably tell you that is the greatest duo ever. Among those films, you have Stagecoach, you have The Searchers, you have The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. I mean, there's massively famous all-time level movies on that list.
They kind of made 14 of the same film, though.
Yes.
Yeah. And John Wayne is kind of exactly the same in every one. So it's like, while we can give a lot of credit there, we're not going to enjoy talking about them as much.
And like when you go back and you watch The Searchers and you realize that every Indian is played by a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white man, it's just a little bit weird to watch.
Yes.
It's really difficult when you watch those things now, those movies that you kind of loved when you were a kid, and then you watch them now and you're like,
Yeah. Oh, tell me about it.
I don't know. It's very, it's a tough one.
Next up, we've got the combinations of Alfred Hitchcock and Jimmy Stewart and Alfred Hitchcock and Cary Grant. 4 films each. Among them, some of the greatest of all time. Rear Window, Vertigo, North by Northwest.
Yeah.
I mean, very, very famous stuff. Again, we, as the action guys, talk about movies. We do talk about some older films. They're not ones that we're as seasoned with, so we're going to skip past that.
Yeah, as Joe said earlier on, we're We're babies.
Yeah,
you
we
know,
do.
like this is just a little before our time.
Changing gears, we do have Judd Apatow and Seth Rogen in the honorable mentions with 40-Year-Old Virgin, Knocked Up Funny People, and of course producing Freaks and Geeks.
Yeah.
Tim Burton and Michael Keaton on the honorable mentions list for obvious reasons. The film comes out this weekend. We don't really want to give anything away on that one. And two of them are Batman movies, so I think we're not going to try to elaborate too much because they've been talked to death. But we did do Batman Returns on Action Movie Anatomy this week. Whole hour on that movie, so you guys can go watch that over on Popcorn Talk.
Yeah, and Keaton was wonderfully weird in Dumbo.
Oh yeah,
I think it was the best.
The
way to
choices
describe
were
him.
so bizarre.
Yeah,
and
I love it.
I love Keaton so
And
much.
there was a semblance of he threw in some Batman in there.
Yeah.
Definitely. It was really tough on set to not just go, Michael, please. Just say it.
one time.
Say it.
Just say it once, yeah.
I'm Batman.
Yeah, 'cause you guys
just
are next to each other, like,
so
the whole time.
badly wanted to ask him. I just couldn't. He must get asked that all the time.
He's had one of the most interesting careers. We were talking about this
100%.
earlier, and it's like for a guy that came out, and he and Tom Hanks kind of occupied the same space for a little while there in the 80s. They were both these kind of like leading men with sort of quirky, handsome qualities and a lot of comic chops. And then he plays Batman, and Hanks goes on and wins the 2 Oscars. But then now, in this day and age, he's more successful right now than Tom Hanks. Hanks can't really make a movie that people like, and all Keaton does is star in movies that win Best Picture.
home run
Like he
hitters.
just
No, Tom Hanks continues to make great movies. It's just that I guess they're not quite as edgy. People now want something that's a little bit edgy and that kind of thing, or a little bit different.
right.
He's
He's amazing. Don't get me wrong. I just mean like Bridge of Spies and The Post, which are 2 films.
Bridge of
we'll talk
Spies is
about.
an amazing movie.
Yeah.
Rylance is so good. In
He's
that.
incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just been a very interesting a moment for them because it was like in the early '90s is when Keaton and Hanks were both there, but then Hanks just like skyrocketed to another stratosphere.
So, and then the final one on the honorable mentions list, just because we're such big fans, we had to throw this in. Tony Scott and Denzel Washington. And this is one that most people are going to pan, but Drew and I have spent like half our lives talking about this duo. You've got Crimson Tide, Man on Fire, Deja Vu, The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, and Unstoppable. Now, most people would say that half those movies aren't good.
They're wrong.
They're wrong. What the reason we want to bring it up, and you mentioned Top Gun, which is why I was really excited about this to get to this one. Because Tony Scott, the late, great Tony Scott, is one of my favorite directors of all time. Because he had such a sense of how to combine that massive commercial appeal and getting these really grounded moments out of his big stars.
Heartfelt, like really heartfelt moments.
So pulling moments out of Denzel in these giant set-piece action movies where you would be watching a scene, you're like, oh, this is a real emotional moment here, and I'm totally into it. And he takes such an iconic performance like a Denzel and makes it stand out in the midst of all these explosions. I just could never get enough of that dude. I love these movies.
Yeah, and
They're definitely fun movies. I mean, it's one of those things. I don't think any of these movies match up to Top Gun, but they're all fun movies. Denzel makes those kinds of movies, and Tony Scott cannot fail to make those movies. But I'm sitting here wondering, do we have Michael Mann on here?
We don't, but who would be the Michael Mann collaborator be? 'Cause
exactly.
He was my favorite director of all time for a long time, and he doesn't consistently work with the same guy. Pacino
he's always
was
working
in
with different
2 of his movies. And they're probably his 2 best.
Yeah.
Maybe. Love Michael Mann. Huge
Yeah.
fan. Do you have a favorite Michael Mann movie?
Heat.
Yes,
It's got to be Heat. It just
Yeah.
is. That shootout in the street is just so cool.
Episode 100 of our
I started watching it just completely by accident the other day on
You can't turn it off.
I just it was on. I was just like, oh my god, I forgot how good this movie
It's
is.
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All like 3.5 hours of it
Oh
or
my-
whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. And
You
the-
just don't want to stop. It's
Nope.
great.
And
Yeah.
The weird shootout in the airport is like perfectly poetic somehow.
Yeah, it's incredible. So, I mean, so speaking of De Niro, we're going to jump in with the very first one on this list here.
And
Now-
arguably maybe just the number one ever.
Yeah, you got Robert De Niro and Martin Scorsese with a crazy, crazy run together. You've got 8 films on the list, plus a 9th releasing this year on Netflix in The Irishman. I'm going to read off these movies. Mean Streets, Taxi Driver, New York, New York, Raging Bull, The King of Comedy, Goodfellas, Casino, Cape Fear, and now releasing The Irishman. I mean, is there realistically going to be a better list than that list?
I mean,
There's not a bad movie on that list, is there?
no. And they're
New York,
all
New York is maybe
classics.
New York's maybe the redheaded stepchild of the
Yeah.
group, possibly.
Yeah.
I
I
guess.
finally watched The King Comedy like a month ago because Andreyko told me to watch it.
It's really good.
It's really good, and he plays something you've never seen him do before, which is like we talk about a lot how Pacino and De Niro, as they've gotten older, they've just kind of started to play themselves as older men, which is fine because we still love them. But
Although ironically, De Niro now is doing tons of comedy.
Yeah.
He's doing tons of comedy, and his early career, you'd be like, if
Never.
somebody had said, this guy's going to be doing a lot of good comedy and good comedy,
Right,
Yeah.
in his
you'd be
late-
like, get out of here,
Right.
And there he is, like knocking it out of the park, doing some great comedy stuff.
I mean, he's a legend.
He's a legend. He's an all-timer. I think it's hard to pick a best performance out of this group, but my favorite movie out of this group is Goodfellas. It's the one that when I go back to these movies, Goodfellas is kind of like Heat in the sense that I can't turn it on and then stop watching it.
That tracking shot in the beginning at the club, and just like I always want to be
It's
a
just
gangster. There's just so
amazing.
many excellent lines in there that.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite on there, Joe?
Oh, God, it's a tough one. Mean Streets is still one of my favorite movies.
Really good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Just because of the rawness of it, and that kind of thing. But also, I loved Cape Fear.
Cape Fear's great.
I really did love
Katie.
Cape Fear.
You guys
He
might-
did a great job on that.
Commissioner.
Oh yeah, Cape Fear is good. You guys might murder me. I've never seen Raging Bull.
Yeah, it's not that
I've seen
surprising.
Taxi Driver once.
Raging Bull's good,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's as good as everyone
Claims it is.
claims it is.
I hear
Yeah.
that's the one that's like, oh, he's almost there. They're almost there together, and then the next time they collab is when it's like a home run, right? Isn't
Well-
it Raging Bull and then?
I mean, the next one they do together is King of Comedy, and then it's after that it's Goodfellas.
Yeah.
But the thing that's interesting about Raging Bull is like, when you talk about any genre has this, but Raging Bull was a defining sports movie. It was a sports movie that had never been done before. Like Rocky's only 4 years earlier, and Rocky's a totally different kind of movie. But Raging Bull is just so dark and raw and edgy, and he really commits to this role. He gains all that weight for the last part of it. It's a great performance, and he wins Best Actor for it, which is why people remember it so
Yeah.
well. But I think of the classic performances, it's probably the most overrated because like it's really about the and the way they speed it up and slow it down. It's all that extra the film tricks and stuff like that. I don't know. It's been a while since I've watched it. but-
There's a lot of that happens where I think actors' performances can be either overrated or underrated depending on the whole movie kind of thing. There are lots that I can mention in my own mind, but for purposes of not being hated, I'm not going to.
We did a biggest Oscar snubs of history show a month ago. It was pretty
Yeah.
interesting. There were some good ones. in
strong
there.
comments on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough one because it's a very personal kind of thing. Like, what's a good performance? What isn't a good performance? And like even at the recent Academy Awards, there were some awards that were given out. Like,
Oh yeah, this last one was.
This
a
was
tough
one of the
I
weirdest.
don't know, why didn't Glenn Close get that award?
Right.
It was brutal.
Not that there's anything wrong with Olivia Colman. She's wonderful and amazing, but come on, Glenn
It's
Close.
Glenn Close.
I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
who has she upset at the Academy? Because she that performance, firstly she cannot give a bad performance, and secondly, the wife, that was an unbelievable performance.
She was incredible.
She's always that good.
Yeah.
And she's always consistent. She's like, I even love her all the way back to Air Force One. I think she's excellent,
geez.
even in Air Force One.
I'm a gigantic Glenn Close fan. I interviewed her twice this season leading up to that, and the second time I just told her outright, "You're going to win the Oscar." It was 3 days before she didn't. I couldn't. I mean, I had the tweet.
She's thinking right now, that kid jinxed me on the carpet.
I had the tweet prepared and saved in my drafts. I was just waiting, and they announced that I could not believe it. I was blown away. So, but coming up on the next on our list here is going to be the other Scorsese muse, and that's Dicaprio. And you got 5 movies on the DiCaprio list. These 5 are the Wolf of Wall Street, Shutter Island, The Departed, The Aviator, and Gangs of New York. Another crazy set of heavy hitters.
Yeah, clearly it doesn't have the longevity that De Niro has, but the amount of weight that he's carried in these 5 films. I mean, it's just, so what is it about Scorsese? Like, I mean, clearly he's one of, if not the greatest. Why is it that he finds this muse and just goes with them?
Yeah.
16
I don't
films.
know, but I wish he would stop making movies with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Really? You're not a fan?
I don't like any of those movies.
Really?
Oh, that surprises me.
So talk, Joe.
No, I just I've never been a fan of those movies. I think The Departed is one of the most overrated movies ever made.
Interesting.
Wow.
I remember going to see the movie at the Kodak,
Yeah.
and I think me and my friend, we stayed to the end, but then we both walked out thinking, God, that movie was terrible.
Really?
Yeah,
Crazy.
we hated it.
And then it won Best Picture.
And then it won 7 Academy Awards or
Yeah.
something, and I was mesmerized. I was just like, I don't get it. But I was one of the few. Most people seem to love it. But I just thought that it was very clumsy. it was, you know, it was one of those movies that was catering to the lowest common denominator in the sense that everything was laid out for you. And if you didn't get it the first time, they sent you this message the second time. And then the third time, you know, everything was so, it was painting by numbers.
Right.
Kind of thing. There was nothing new being done. And I'm just like, some of the performances were great. Like Martin Sheen was incredible.
Yeah, he's great. In
He's
that
so
movie.
great.
I think, wasn't he up for didn't he win Best Supporting Actor for that, I think?
No.
Wahlberg got nominated, which was really weird.
Yeah, Wahlberg got the nomination. It's possible Sheen got one too. I don't quite remember.
I don't
But
understand.
I remember him being amazing, and I was incredibly sad when he threw himself off that roof.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, no, you're the best character in the movie.
I think Alan Arkin won that year for Little Miss Sunshine, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So I got to ask you, Joe, then, since you were telling us before the show that Scorsese is one of your biggest influences or one of your greatest directors of all time as an actor, what do you think changed between these time periods? Because we're looking at, 11 movies up top and then 6 on the bottom or 5 on the bottom, and you said you don't like any of these.
Yeah, I just don't know. Like the movies he made with De Niro were all doing something new. They were all raw. They were all. There was something edgy about every single one of them. The movies with Dicaprio, these all seemed like too demonstrative. It's like everything was over the top. Nothing seemed real.
Interesting.
I don't know if that makes sense. It just all seemed too.
I kind of get what you're saying. Because there's scenes in Gangs of New York and The Departed, and especially Wolf of Wall Street, where you're like, I'm just watching a cool movie right now.
It's just cool.
Like, it just
but
feels
it's
sexy.
not a lot of substance.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing about Wolf of Wall Street that I've said is when I've rewatched that movie. See, I love that movie,
I
but
couldn't get through it. I watched like 10 minutes of it and had to stop.
it does feel like it's incredibly derivative of like a tone that he's done before and has been done before. But I do like it. So
I realized when I was watching it, like straight on, I was like, this is pretty good. And then if I was doing something else while it's on in the background, I'm like, oh, this movie's excellent. You know what I mean? Like, it just sounds fun.
Here's what was one of the major differences. I was just thinking between the De Niro movies and the DiCaprio movies. In the DiCaprio movies, there's no one that you like.
Oh, interesting.
None of the characters are people that you root for.
I mean, that's not totally untrue. I don't think...
that is very interesting.
I don't really like any of the characters in Gangs, except, I mean, I love Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah, but
he's
you like him because it's Daniel Day-Lewis doing a badass.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, but he's not like a character that you don't like him.
I don't
you
wanna
don't
hang out with that
You don't
guy.
want to hang out with him. You don't want to root for him. You know, you just like he's a bad character, and you know, it was the same in all of these movies.
Aviator, Shutter Island, both the same. Yeah.
It's so funny. I'm like sitting here thinking about because I love The Departed.
Yeah.
And like, he's so right.
Yeah, they all kind of suck.
Like
Leo-
the nice character was Martin Sheen's character.
Yeah, it's Sheen, and then like you kind of like Jack, but then you realize he's the bad guy, and then Leo is losing his mind
and
the whole
Wolf,
time.
they're all bad people.
They're all bad people in
Yeah.
Wolf.
Yeah.
I mean,
is-
like in with the De Niro pictures, De Niro plays some bad people, but they're
You like feel.
Yeah, you
for
like
him.
Jimmy, you like Ray Liotta, you love those characters.
they're
Yeah,
people
yeah.
who are they're not bad just for the sake of being bad. They're bad because something has happened to
Interesting.
make them be that way. Like obviously we don't like what's the name of the character in Cape Fear?
Max Cady.
We don't like Max Cady.
Yeah.
We want him to die as quickly as possible. But we're rooting for the family to survive. We're
Yeah.
rooting for them. There's always got to be someone that you're rooting for, that you love, that you want to survive, that you want to win. And in those movies, there just isn't. You watch them and you're like, that's a horrible character. That's a horrible character. And when you don't care and you want all of them to die, you just like, then you don't invest anything into the movie. Maybe I'm looking too deeply
Or
into
if
it,
they
but
all-
that's what I want in a movie. I want to be able to invest in a character.
Yeah, and at the end of The Departed, they basically all do just die.
Well, and so speaking of, we mentioned Leo, and we mentioned directors that I think you're a fan of. Moving over to Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
So you talk about a great performance in Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah.
This is probably my favorite.
That's your
Steven
favorite-
Spielberg
yeah.
movie. Honestly, I mean, I think even more so than the Best Picture winning stuff. Though Saving Private Ryan's pretty close behind. You have those two. You have The Terminal, Bridge of Spies, and The Post. How do you feel about that group, guys?
I love them. It's one of my favorite groups.
I I'm having a little bit harder time to grasp onto what Hanks is doing now, but I think it's just again because of like what he was doing when he was younger was so much. I don't want to say it feels like he's complacent because you watch him perform and he still hits home runs, but he's like not doing anything new. Well, I want him to do something new. I
that's
think
the thing. So you look at The Post and Bridge of Spies, and both movies, while good, they don't stand out to me in the way that like something by Denis Villeneuve right now does. Like Arrival stands out to me when I watch that movie. The Post is technically a very good movie.
And you've got two of the greatest actors on screen ever.
But like you look at the three here at the bottom, comparing them to Catch Me If You Can and Saving Private Ryan, and it's like it feels like we're talking apples and oranges at that point. Because Catch Me If You Can and Saving Private Ryan feel like all-time movies in my book.
And they also feel like all-time characters, even though they're very subtle.
Hanratty, I love Hanks so much in Catch Me If You Can.
He's like just annoying enough and just fatherly enough, and then like him as a quiet school teacher captain in Private Ryan is the subtleties behind that man's performances are just absolutely astonishing.
You have a favorite on here, Joe?
Of those movies?
Yeah.
Well, funny enough, even though it's been really derided, I enjoyed The Terminal.
Yeah, some people love that movie.
It's like a love-hate. I watched that movie, and he plays his character, and he's so cute and likable.
He's got like a foreign accent, right?
Victor Dvorsky, is that the character's name?
I think he does a Ukrainian accent or something in the movie. And I really enjoyed it. I don't think it's an Academy Award-winning movie, but they make these movies, and Tom plays these characters. I mean, I know what you mean when you say that, Tom's not doing anything new and interesting, but he has so much subtlety.
Yeah.
Kind of like with Robert De Niro or Al Pacino. A lot of people say they should just keep playing themselves. But as an actor, that's one of the hardest things to do, is to play that kind of thing and be completely real and believable. It's actually more difficult than playing a really outrageous, doing what Daniel Day-Lewis did in Gangs of New York is way easier than playing,
Tom Hanks in The Post.
Exactly.
Interesting.
To be compelling when you're quiet and you're subtle and you're just because it's ultimate reality. There's no bells and whistles. You're not dressing it up.
And do something big.
And even the lines are written to make you sound awesome in Gangs of New York. Whereas like Tom Hanks is just speaking as you would working at the Washington Post.
So then jumping over to the next one, this is genre difference a little bit. You got Wes Anderson and Bill Murray, 8 films. When I was doing the research here, I had forgotten that he's in every one of these movies. You got Rushmore, The Royal Tenenbaums, The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, The Darjeeling Limited, Fantastic Mr. Fox, Moonrise Kingdom, Grand Budapest Hotel, and Isle of Dogs. I've actually still not seen 2 of these films. I've seen 6
Moonrise
of them.
and Fantastic?
No, Moonrise and Budapest are the 2 that I haven't watched.
Do you want to? You doing all right, Joe? You want some more water?
Yeah, it's got a little froggy in the throat.
No, no worries.
Yeah, we've all been there before.
Totally last week on the show.
Right. Totally different genre, of course, and he headlines the top couple here. Rushmore and Life Aquatic are basically his movies. But I mean, Bill Murray is kind of the current contender for coolest man alive, right? That's usually people refer to him that way.
It's so crazy they've done that many movies together.
That's like almost every single movie Wes Anderson's directed. I think he has. Bottle Rocket doesn't have Bill Murray in it, and I think there's one other movie that we're forgetting maybe in here.
There must be.
Or maybe there's 9 and he's just not in the first one.
That's a great list of movies.
It's a hell of a list, right? You have a favorite on there?
Oof. I think I love them all, to be quite honest.
I definitely.
I think back to the first time I watched Royal Tenenbaums and didn't have any expectations.
It's my favorite.
And completely loved it. I was just like, oh my God, this movie is incredible.
Yeah, it's my favorite by far. And granted, it's not fair because Budapest got nominated for 12 Oscars. So it's on my list of 100 this year that I'm going to be watching. But Tenenbaums, when I've gone back to rewatch, has so many moments, so many memorable characters, so much humor. I just love Owen Wilson in that movie. I
adore that movie.
Yeah, that movie. The voiceover by Alec Baldwin.
The nostalgia when you go back and watch it now is just so... It just feels so good to watch that movie.
Yeah.
Wes Anderson is just so clever the way he structures his scripts and he structures these movies and the way he weaves the characters in and out of each other. It's just amazing. I mean, Grand Budapest Hotel is a great example of that. He's just a brilliant director. It's difficult to say anything bad about him, to be quite honest. And like you say, Bill Murray is just sublime.
Yeah.
Everything he does is brilliant.
Yeah, I was. It's so weird. I'm not really the biggest Wes Anderson fan. Like, I don't like hear about a new Wes Anderson movie and I like want to run to the theaters.
Right.
But he is so incredibly innovative and interesting. Just the way that he directs and tells stories is just so unique. You know, yeah, I can't even like put it into words like what it is about it.
I'll tell you what it is. What you'd think is, because if you look at style-wise, it's weird to say, but it actually feels like the most representative film of his style is almost The Royal Tenenbaums.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so specific and it does everything that he does. You would have thought that in 2001, 18 years later, somebody would have ripped him off and you'd have another director you could look at that you could point to and be like, oh, the next Wes Anderson was this guy?
No, because everyone plays it safe.
Nobody did it.
Everybody's doing what's safe, and you've got a lot of directors just all producing the same thing.
Yeah.
So, and he does what he does.
Yeah.
And nobody can do what he does. And that's what I love. It's exactly the same as with Tim Burton.
Yeah, right, the quirky
only
stuff.
Tim can do what Tim does. And I think that's why they stand out, and it's why people like Wes and Tim are kind of have this love-hate relationship with reviewers and with Hollywood and stuff, because they don't really know, are they great? Are they not great? They're not doing the painting by numbers kind of movies that we expect, But and you don't rush to the cinema often to go and see them, but then when you do watch them, you're like, wow, that's a brilliant movie. That's an incredible movie, yeah.
And speaking of which, we have Tim Burton and Johnny Depp as the next collab on this list. And so you got Edward Scissorhands, Ed Wood, Sleepy Hollow, Corpse Bride, Sweeney Todd, Alice in Wonderland, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Like Sweeney Todd.
7 films.
Yeah.
It's like funny. Like if not for
and he was almost in Dumbo.
Was he?
Yeah, almost.
Who was he going to be?
Farrell?
Farrell.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I almost think I would have liked that more. Not that I didn't like Colin. I just it would have been kind of fun to see Johnny Depp just play a dad.
It would have been weird to see Johnny Depp and Tim Burton and Michael Keaton and DeVito all in a movie, all doing a movie together. That would have been. I almost think at this
point. But then
point,
it wouldn't have been Dumbo.
Right.
Yeah,
it would have just been the Boys Club. Or
right,
whatever.
and
It would have been a Johnny Depp movie.
Yeah.
And that's what I was just going to say. Is I think I would have
Yeah.
too hard of a time watching him in that context and not feel like I was watching that. Like he's become so synonymous with like this type of acting in those movies that Colin Farrell was sort of almost so regular as that character that that's why it worked. He didn't feel like a movie star. He felt like that character.
He was just playing a regular guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's been a while since we've seen Johnny Depp play a regular guy. All the characters he's played recently have all been very grandiose, very over the top kind of thing. And obviously he can do that because he's done that earlier on in his career, but he's kind of moved away from that now. And he has this persona that follows him as an actor that I think would have been wrong for the movie.
Yeah.
It's so interesting you say that. Like I think back to one of my favorite early Depp movies, and that's Donnie Brasco.
Yeah.
And it's like '96. It's actually a De Palma movie. It's probably my favorite Brian De Palma movie.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah.
But he's a very normal character. He has some really nice moments in that movie. There's that moment I think when he's undercover and he's on the phone with his wife, and I think he says to her she's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Just don't say anything. I just want to listen to you breathe." It's such a weird line in a script to have, but I think it's such a cool line. But anyway, he doesn't really do that. Like the eccentric rock star character that he kind of in real life has bought into.
Yeah.
The weird braids and the rings and the hats. It's like he's incapable of ditching that enough to just be the Colin Farrell character in Dumbo. He doesn't do it anymore. He has to play some weird, fantastical wizard in a Harry Potter movie, or he has to be Jack Sparrow.
Well, that's what I mean. Is I would just love to see him playing if he were actually to have played that role like Farrell played it. I would love to see Depp just kind of go back to that. I don't know if we ever will see that again, but I would just like to see it.
I hope we do.
I do too, because I actually
I'd
think
love to see him do that.
he's so talented, and he just went through this weird.
There was a time in Johnny Depp's career, no joke, where if you asked me who is the most talented living working actor, it was like him and Day-Lewis, and this was back in 2004 or something.
Right.
I was I was obsessed. They were my two favorite actors, and it feels like a long time since I've felt that way about Johnny Depp.
A lot of times passed.
Yeah.
I think he's a great actor. He just has a very particular style about him.
Yeah.
And a very particular thing that he does really well. And I would love to see him broaden and do something different. But
I mean,
no,
go ahead.
no, go.
Speaking of a weird particular style, another auteur directors, the Coen brothers, and
Yeah.
Frances McDormand I have on here with
great.
8 films together: Blood Simple, Raising Arizona, Miller's Crossing, Barton Fink, Fargo, The Man Who Wasn't There, Burn After Reading, and Hail Caesar. Now I believe she's only bit parts in 2 of these movies. I think in Miller's Crossing and Barton Fink she's uncredited, but she's a starring role in some of these, and she's got an Oscar win for her performance in Fargo, '96.
I've actually only seen 3 of these movies.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm actually shocked. I've only seen Raising Arizona, Fargo, and Burn After Reading.
Oh, you haven't seen Miller's Crossing?
No.
Oh my
I haven't
God.
seen Blood Simple, which I've heard those are both
I
great.
think
never
Miller's
seen Miller's
Crossing is one of their best.
Really?
That's what
Oh,
people
yeah.
say. It's on my list of 100 this year.
Yeah?
It's
Yeah.
an incredible movie.
Who's she in it with?
Oh God, who is
Turturro's in that movie.
Yeah,
is
John
there?
Turturro. And,
I love that Turturro and the
who else?
brothers get along so well.
Terrible at remembering this kind of thing. I just remember it being a stunning movie.
People love that movie.
Yeah.
People talk to me about that. It's one of these movies that I've always kind of intended to watch. I have this project this year where I put together a list of the 100 movies, these kind of movies. The You've never seen X. I
Right.
made a list of 100 that I'm watching 2 a week and doing a
Yeah.
Twitter review of all of them. And Miller's Crossing is one of those ones I'm getting to.
Albert Finney and Gabriel Byrne.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Albert Finney,
Yeah.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is an interesting list here. I think, I love Frances McDormand. She's kind of in that Glenn Close category now for most people, where like she can do no wrong.
She's so
She's
good.
become like kind of a national
Yeah.
treasure, right? Like if she's in something, it's like, oh, Frances, she's great.
And she's just so funny.
Yeah.
Like her real person.
she can do
seems so-
everything.
yeah. I loved 3 Billboards. I thought she was so
Yeah.
good in it.
And she
then-
can do everything. Like you say, she can do drama, she can do comedy, and you believe her all the time.
Yeah.
She doesn't miss a beat. She's completely believable in every moment, and it's rare in an actor that she can do that, and it's fantastic.
Her energy pairs so well with the Coen brothers because they're so all over the place and strange. I've probably seen half their movies, I would say. I just saw Inside Llewyn Davis for the first time.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's good. It's really
Yeah.
it's good. It's kind of a weird small movie that like doesn't wrap up many of the loose ends.
Yeah.
And the characters just kind of fucked up.
They just exist. And
Have
yeah,
you-
it's so
have
weird.
you seen the new one that's on Netflix? What's it called? The Ballad of
Buster Scruggs.
Buster Scruggs.
Yeah.
Haven't seen it yet. No.
Was it good? No.
Wasn't for you, huh?
It wasn't funny. My girlfriend Mercy is a massive Coen Brothers fan. She loved it, absolutely loved it. For me, I was just sitting there thinking, I don't see the point. What's going on?
Right.
Because it's these little. It's about, what is it? I think it's 5 little vignettes, 20-minute vignettes, but they don't really tell you anything, and there's no real story. It's just these little things that happen, and there's no like message. It's very strange. It's like you walk away from it at the end thinking, what
the hell just happened?
Sure. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I mean, it's shot beautifully.
Yeah.
The acting is fantastic, but then you're just like,
Well, that's kind of their MO, is that they make these movies, and that's why I think she pairs so well with them, is like they're not traditional. They're never conventional. That's why they got so much crap when they made Intolerable Cruelty, because like that movie is so much more normal.
Right.
But I
Right.
mean, they're at their best when they're combining like really compelling drama with super strange quirks. Like Fargo, No Country for Old Men. That's why like those are their best movies in a lot of cases. The stuff where they go off is where they try to make. Like Inside Llewyn Davis was well liked, but it just doesn't
weird.
have much of a narrative. It's like
Yeah.
just kind of. And it sounds like this movie is the same way. So
What's the favorite on the list? What's your favorite Coen Brothers movies? Movie? Is it Fargo? Is it No Country?
For me, it's No Country.
It's No Country.
Fargo.
Fargo.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it might be No
It's
Country,
close
but
between
I love,
those two.
Yeah.
It's very close.
I haven't seen Fargo since probably high school. It's been a long
good.
time. I do actually have a soft spot for The Man Who Wasn't There. Most people don't like that movie. That's a beautiful movie. It's shot
seen it.
really well.
I haven't seen that.
I think it's Roger Deakins, and his
that makes
cinematography
sense.
in that movie is gorgeous.
Last on the list, very near and dear to our hearts, is Paul Thomas Anderson and our great, rest in peace, one of our favorites, Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah.
PSH, baby, the Grand Master. I mean, Hard
Nobody
Eight.
calls him that.
Hard Eight, which he's got a small part in, as that was PT's first movie. Boogie Nights, which is both of our top 2 favorite films of all time.
Yeah.
Love it.
Magnolia, which is my 3rd favorite film
Love
of all
that
time.
movie.
Punch Drunk Love, which is underrated.
I watched it about 2 weeks ago.
And he's good in it, right?
He's great. He's such a fuck.
And then The Master, which when I go back and watch The Master, which I've now seen twice, took me a few years to watch
I
it.
need to watch it again.
He is so good in that movie. It makes me sad, in fact, that Day-Lewis won for Lincoln, because I think that Philip Seymour Hoffman should have actually won for that role.
There's some uncomfortable moments in that movie because he's so good.
He's so strange and he's
Yeah.
so powerful. I mean, I think of all the actors who we've lost, it's quite possible that he's the one whose career we missed the most of because of it. I think he may have gone on to just be the greatest of all time if he had continued acting.
I mean, there's no doubt he's a fantastic actor. Was a great actor, and I agree with you. Like with The Master, for example, I hated the movie.
Yeah.
But his performance was amazing.
Yeah.
No doubt.
So powerful.
And I kind of agree with you. I think that Lincoln was overrated.
I watched that one on my 100 this year. That was when I did, and I was not a fan.
I still haven't watched it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
it's a very well made movie.
Right.
Tells a lovely story, yada yada yada. But there's nothing.
That's like what we were talking about Spielberg. That's literally what we were saying earlier, right? That movie defines what it is. There's nothing interesting about it. It's
it just is completely accurate, completely correct, and very well done.
Beautifully made documentary.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Unlike some of his other stuff he's done, like Armistead, which is, if there was a bit more Armistead in Lincoln, then there's a bit more drama, there's a bit more tension, there's a bit more risk, a bit more edginess.
Period.
The stakes are higher. There seem like to be, even though it's an important story, there seem to be no stakes in Lincoln. And again, you've got Daniel Day-Lewis giving one of those performances that is, it's a really good performance, but is he acting or is he doing an impersonation? It's like...
couldn't agree more. Amazing.
It's kind of like, I have this conversation with people about Will Smith in Ali, I'm just like... Everyone's like, oh, it's a great performance. I'm like, is it? Or is he just doing an impersonation kind of thing?
Yeah.
Now, it's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Exactly.
But for me, Philip Seymour Hoffman in The Master was definitely a real acting performance.
That's like a created character.
Yes.
And so speaking of these 5 films, because it's impossible for you and I to not look at this list and just gravitate towards this list because of the way we feel about Boogie Nights, and not even just Boogie Nights, but him in Boogie Nights.
Magnolia.
Yeah,
him Magnolia for some reason stood out to me.
I love it so much.
It was one of those movies that, again, took me completely by surprise.
Well, and you see Cruise doing something you've almost never seen him do before.
Yeah, and you watch this movie and you're like, what the hell was that? That was awesome.
Yeah.
Like, and you watch it and you're like, that was brilliant. And you just don't expect it. It's like, what is it? And it's fantastic. Tom Cruise the fact that he got Tom Cruise doing what he was doing in that movie, I was just like...
I mean,
dude.
We talked about on this show like probably a month ago. We did an episode that was each of our top 5 favorite films of all time. So we did like a few minutes on each. Yeah. My second and third favorite films are Boogie Nights and Magnolia. So I talked a lot about these. And when I think about Magnolia, I have the hardest time because who's my favorite performance? Is it Cruise? Is it John C. Reilly? Is it Julianne Moore? Is it Philip Seymour Hoffman? Is it Jason Robards?
They're
all perfect.
Yeah.
Is it William H. Macy? Is it Alfred Molina? They're like, everybody in that movie is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I mean,
it's Julianne Moore.
But I know.
She's so good.
She's so good. So amazing in that movie. Philip Seymour Hoffman, though, in the scenes with Jason Robards, when Robards is on the bed and he's giving that speech about motherfucker and all that stuff, and oh my god! And then when Julianne Moore comes home and he's like, I got Frank on the phone. She hangs up and she starts slapping him around and he starts crying. That movie will get me every time. Every time.
I do. This is reminding me what a great movie that actually was. Is. I really enjoyed that movie. I mean, that's quite a list.
Yeah, I know. I love Paul Thomas Anderson. I hope that he continues to make films, and I hope he kind of reels it in just a little. Because, like you said, I didn't like The Master. No. I thought it was a great performance. It's just a little too crazy for
Phantom
me.
Thread was fine. It was kind of a little slow. The only one I've never seen is Inherent Vice. It's the only one I never watched.
I wasn't a fan either. I should really watch that because I was up for one of the main roles in that. And,
really?
And I was kind of excited about it. I got real close to booking the role.
Well, maybe you won't like it then.
Well, it depends. Depends how good the guy who booked my role.
Yeah, that's exactly.
That's fair.
But yeah.
All right, so guys, those are the contenders. So now it's time for each of us to pick which group of films do we like. Who is the greatest?
And just to give you a quick recap.
Yeah.
De Niro and Scorsese, Dicaprio and Scorsese, Hanks and Spielberg, Coen Brothers and Francis McDormand, Paul Thomas Anderson and Philip Seymour Hoffman, Wes Anderson and Bill Murray, and of course Tim Burton and Johnny Depp.
And of course there are other collabs that we left off of here. There's a ton. It's impossible to include all of them. In general, we tried to go with people that had more than 3. So like Tarantino and Uma Thurman's a tough one because Pulp Fiction and The Two Kill Bills are great, but there's just too many to mention all at once. We tried to go with the meatiest lists here, and it's now each of our turns. Who wants to go first with their pick?
I'm gonna hop in first because Joe totally swayed me. I was actually gonna say Leo and Scorsese. I think I really was, and then based off what he said, I do like those movies, but he made a really good point about the characters not really being likable, and that kind of blew my mind. I think I'm just going to have to go Paul Thomas Anderson and PSH. I know that it's so short, and I know that we're not going to get any more, so it technically probably will never be the greatest.
Yeah.
But I could not live without Boogie Nights and Magnolia. I just couldn't. I just could not live without them.
I have to agree.
No way.
I mean, look, I really want to give one of the Scorsese lists the nod, and there's a part of me that looks at the Hanks list and just goes like,
yeah,
how do you, I mean, there's an argument for any one of these, to be honest, but I love those Paul Thomas, those Philip Seymour Hoffman roles so much. And it's not just that, it's him in Boogie Nights as Scotty J.
Yeah, Scotty J
is one of his greatest creations. That is such a hard character to pull off. It's so self-effacing. It's so like humiliating to be that guy. You're wearing this brilliantly rainbowed, overly tight clothing. You look like he looks like an idiot, but
Every
he's
scene
just
is awkward. Like even the walking down the hallway at the same time.
Oh my god! But he's so good. I have to go with that list. Just I love the movies too much.
What do you got, Joe?
Oof. For me, it's split between two, and it's probably because of how they've influenced me. And it's got to be Scorsese, De Niro, and Tim and Johnny.
Yeah,
Love it.
It's understandable.
It's between those two. I mean, those particular directors and actors have had such an influence. I mean, I'm probably going to have to give it to Scorsese, De Niro, because the thing about Tim and Johnny is I love Tim, but I'm not as big a fan of Johnny and his work per se. So if it's about the combination, probably Scorsese, De Niro.
And thank God you said that.
Yeah,
because we would have gotten canceled.
We just destroyed. And we walked in here, and the guy who originally greenlit our show here, former producer of the network, we were like, we're doing actor-director combos. He's like, well, it's just De Niro and Scorsese, right? There's no question.
We're like, well, yeah.
So I think it's probably the correct choice. I mean, you have one Oscar plus another you have 3 Oscar nominations for Best Actor in that list, plus a Best Picture win
and a Best Actor win,
or a Best Actor win. I mean to say, yeah. So I mean that's that's hard to beat. And not only that, but like the ones on here that are not as special, like special by accolades.
Yeah.
Right? Like I love Casino. I love it. It's not even probably in the top 5 of this list by most people's standards. And I can't get enough of it.
Right, and we're saying that Raging Bull is a movie that we all picked on. It's like Raging Bull is
It's
the movie
Raging
we're picking
Bull,
on,
you know?
Right. Yeah.
All right, guys. So that is that's going to wrap up our directors and actors combos. I think probably gun to my head, I would have to say Robert De Niro, Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
If I didn't have time to explain myself.
So leave your guys' thoughts in the comments below. If you're listening to this and you're hearing a clip of this episode on audio, whatever, you want to see it, you want to see how completely shredded our guest here is, and actually see him in person, go to the YouTube page. Go check it out. You guys can find the full video on Action Industries. You can find a clip of this on Collider's movie podcast network on their YouTube channel. Yep. And
go watch Dumbo.
Yeah, go watch it this weekend. It's super fun, and we're so appreciative you came by, man. This was so much fun.
Don't hate me after you watch the movie.
No, you guys see how
I am
sweet
an
of a guy he is.
playing a role.
Yeah, he's this guy.
Hopefully, I won't be banned from Disneyland.
I was watching the end of it. I was like, dude, can he just give up already? Like, damn, go home, Skelly, go home.
Well, I was kind of dragged out the house, but anyway.
Yeah.
So, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And one more time, let's give a hand for Joe. Thank you for coming by, man.
Thank you so much, Joe. We'll see you guys next week.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.